Do you want to know how you can add that extra touch to your images that will make them pop out? In this episode, I'm going to show how you can enhance your food images with better color and contrast thanks to the plugin Color Efex Pro. And I will also show how you can make perspective adjustments with Perspective Efex. Hi, my name is Solly. Welcome to my studio. Today we'll be looking on how you can add that wow factor to your images thanks to two plugins in Nik Collection 3. I will share how I prepare my raw files, and I'll also guide you step by step on different post-processing adjustments that I do in Color Efex Pro and Perspective Efex. In this video, I'll be editing 5 of my images, showing you step by step how I'm using Color Efex and Perspective Efex. First, we will be editing this photo of chili peppers with a dark and moody touch. Then I'll show how you can bring out texture and details in a macro photo like this one with raspberries. And the last photo I'll be editing in Color Efex will be this with pesto, showing how you can create a high-key style version of it. Then we will be moving on to Perspective Efex, and I'll show how you can use it and get the same effect as you would with a tilt and shift lens, like in this photo with a pastry, and also how to straighten deformed subject like this glass with orange juice. For those of you who are not familiar with Nik Collection by DxO, I will quickly explain what it is. It's a collection of several plugins with filters, effects, presets, and image editing tools that you can either use on its own, but also through Photolab by DxO, Lightroom, or Photoshop. In this video, I'll be showing how I work in its plugins through Lightroom. What I do in Lightroom that I also will show you soon is to prepare the raw file. I make lens corrections by checking the box for removing chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. That's all. Then I simply continue to edit the image in one of Nik Collection's plugins. Let's begin. This is the original image of some chili peppers I've taken. What I don't like with the photo is that it's pretty flat and dull. I want to have a more dark and moody feeling, but also make the chili peppers to pop out by adjusting their color and texture. So in Lightroom, I scroll down to lens corrections, make sure that the checkbox for remove chromatic aberrations is checked, and I also check the enable profile corrections and look for the lens model. In this case, it's Nikon 50mm. And then I right click on the image and click on Edit in Color Efex Pro 4 and then click on Edit. Now the image is opening in Color Efex, and as you can see, we have a big filter library and also recipes that are actually presets. They are based on different filters that you can find here in the library. You can either choose different filters, you can see the before and after results. You can also go down to recipes, try to preview the image with different presets. So here I'm trying out different presets, and actually that's what I do with each image. There is not a preset that I use on all of my images because it totally depends on the result that I want to achieve. So here I'm hesitating between Red Rocks and Super Punch. Super Punch is one of my favorite recipes. For this specific image, I think I'll proceed with Red Rocks. On the right panel, you can see the filters that this recipe is based on and make your specific adjustments. Beginning with the detail extractor, I increase it a bit because I want to have more texture in the image. I also inactivate the before and after panel view so I can see the entire image when editing. There is no general setting that works for all images. What I do is that I simply play around with the settings of filters. Here I increase the contrast and I also increase the saturation so we can see more of the vibrant red color of the chili peppers. I skip both the cross-processing and cross-balance and go to Photo Stylizer to see what I can do, but I don't find it useful for this image in particular. But I advise you to try and see what the different filters can do. I'm skipping dark and light in center as well, and will replace it with another filter. As you can see, there are many filters to choose among in the filter library. I'm trying out some of them here. The contrast only, for example, but in the end, I'm actually going for the dark contrast. Here I increase the saturation and also the brightness so we can see more of the chili peppers. I increase the contrasts as well and play around with the brightness again. I feel the upper left area of the image is too bright, and I want to darken it. Thanks to the U-point technology, you can control the areas where you want the filter effect and where you don't want to have it. And you can adjust the level of opacity and other settings. So here I simply add control points. This gives you full control over how much of the filter you want to be used on the image. When you check the box to the right of the control point, you can see what areas in the image that are affected. When clicking on the box to the left of the control point, you can see the image without the effects of the control point. Here I'm adding a few more control points and adjusting the opacity until I feel I have the result that I like. Now I'm pleased with it, and you can see the before and after image. In a close-up photo, it's nice to see the details of the subject, and I feel that this photo can be improved by adding more structure to it, but also some vibrance and glow. Just as with the previous images, I prepare the photo in Lightroom. I look for the lens that I use to capture the image, and as you can see, I'm not very fond of the fact that we can see the background in the top right corner, so I crop the image, and that's all. Then I right-click and edit in Color Efex and click on Edit. Okay, so here we are. So for this image, I actually chose to go with a recipe, actually one of my favorite ones, called Super Punch. Here you can see the before and after. Here I decreased the brightness slightly, and I increased the saturation to add some more color, and I played around a little bit with the contrast and decided to leave it at 20%. Then I went down to contrast only and adjusted the brightness. So I decreased the brightness slightly. And then I went to contrast and increased it with 12%. And then I also played around with the saturation. I actually increased it to 15%. And then I went to Pro Contrast, another filter in this preset. And there I increase the dynamic contrast slightly. And then I decided to add a filter and make sure to press the Shift key when you want to add a filter or recipe. Otherwise, the filter you are working with will be replaced with a new filter or recipe. So here I chose to add brilliance and warmth. And I decreased the warmth because I wanted to have a more colder feeling, and I increased the saturation slightly. And when I achieved the result I wanted, I went up to contrast only and decreased the brightness and also increased the contrast a little bit. and adjusted the saturation. And I went back to brilliance and warmth, decreased the saturation. So after making these final tweaks, I had a look on the before and after. This was the result that I was looking for, so I pressed on save. The Nik Collection 3.3 has just been updated with 25 new recipes and filters. One of the new recipes is called Classic Portrait High Key. Even though it's for portraits, nothing stops us from using it for food, right? In this photo, I wanted to open up the shadows, increase the highlights without removing too much of the details or colors. And I will use one of the new recipes to do so. So this is the original raw file. I prepare it in Lightroom, and then I right-click on the image and open Color Efex. So here we are in Color Efex Pro 4. As I mentioned earlier, I'll use one of the new recipes that you can find in 25th anniversary of Nik Collection. It's called Classic Portrait High Key. There we go. So I begin with the settings under High Key. I adjust the glow and I decrease it. Then I adjust the standard high key, increase it slightly, and I do the same thing with dynamic high key. Then I increase the saturation. I want to have more of the green in the image. Then I go down to brilliance and warmth and increase the saturation even there. I increase the perceptual saturation slightly. Here I tweak the contrast a little bit and also the glow to find the result that I want to achieve. And I also adjust the standard high key a little bit. And I increase the dynamic high key as well. I also decrease the contrast a little bit. This is the result that I wanted to achieve. It's a beautiful high key style image, and here you can see the before and after. So what's wrong with this image? Well, the horizontal line is not very straight, and the glass with the orange juice is a bit deformed, but this is something that we can easily fix in Perspective Efex. So what needs to be fixed is the horizontal line and the deformed glass. I begin by opening the application. I right-click on the image and click on Edit In and Perspective Efex. So here we are in Perspective Efex, and I wanted to start with correcting the horizontal line. So I go to Horizon. And I try with auto first. Sometimes it works, but in this case you can see it's not the good option. So I remove that and I'll try to fix it manually. So I click on that button and put the line there. And then I tweak it, so I bring it down a bit on the left side to bring the horizon up on that side, so we will have a straight horizon, and I think this is perfect. So now the horizon is straight and I want to fix the deformed glass. So I can do that by going to Perspective, and then I click on the two parallel lines, and here I'll drag the parallel lines close to the glass. And in the bottom, I try to angle them towards the glass so I can straighten it up. And I do the same on the right side. So let's see how it will work. Yes, it's pretty good. I will tweak it a little bit more on the right side and a little bit here on the left side to see how it would work. And I think actually this is just perfect. So I click on Apply. So here we are, the horizon is straight and we have fixed the deformation of the glass. Now I will show how you can use Perspective Efex to get a tilt and shift effect on your photos. What I don't like with this image is that everything is in focus. The pastry, the decoration flowers, and the fork. It distracts the eye of the viewer because you don't know where to look at first. I want the pastry to be the main focus here, But as it's rectangular and I have positioned it so it's not straight in parallel with the lens, it's impossible to get the entire pastry in focus without having everything around it in focus as well. The difference between a traditional lens and a tilt and shift lens is that with a traditional lens, the focal plane is parallel to the image sensor, whereas with a tilt and shift lens, a focal plane can be angled. Thanks to the miniature effect in Perspective Efex, you can achieve the same effect. So that's why I made sure to have everything in focus in this image, as I knew I was going to fix it in Perspective Efex. If I wouldn't have done that and photographed the pastry with a more open aperture, the result would have been this. This part of the pastry is in focus and also everything else on this parallel line. But as I wanted to have the entire pastry in focus, I need to use either a tilt and shift lens or capture the image with an aperture above f16 to get everything in focus and then fix it in Perspective Efex. Okay, so here we are in Perspective Efex, and what I will do here is to minimize the perspective window and then go to miniature effect, because this is where you get the tilt and shift effect. So I click on the button and then I adjust the two parallel lines around the pastry because it's the pastry that I want to have in focus. So I drag it down and then I adjust to the size of it like this, and here you can actually adjust the blurriness on each side of the parallel lines. You can either choose to have symmetric blur, or if you uncheck the box, you can adjust the upper part separately. And here I think I will go with something like around 30. So more blurriness in the top of the image, and in the bottom I think I'll go with something like 20, so less out of focus. And so now we have this area between the parallel lines in focus, so it's very sharp, and the flowers and the fork are out of focus, so they're a bit blurry. You can also adjust the two parallel lines and tweak them if you want to have a more narrowed shape in the top or in the bottom. So you have to uncheck the symmetric position box, and then you can just drag and put the lines where you want to have them. So here I try to narrow the end part of it. The pastry and the flower is in focus, so they're sharp, and the flowers in the top of the image and the fork in the bottom are out of focus, so they are blurry. In my opinion, this way the attention of the viewer is drawn directly to the pastry, and you wouldn't get distracted by the flowers that are in the top or the fork that is in the bottom left of the image. As you could see, with just a few clicks, you can add different creative filters in Color Efex Pro and make perspective adjustments with Perspective Efex, taking your images to another level. I hope you found it easy to follow and that you will experiment with your images at home. If you have any questions, just drop me a comment to the video below and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.